I always roll my eyes when bands say things like, "We don't want to be labeled, man." Well, then make music that's outside of that genre. But with Ingested, yeah, I gotta give it to them. This band really does push the genre boundaries. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's Riff of the Week. I got my grubby little hands on an early copy of Ingested's new album, The Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams. And I'm really interested in how the fans are going to react to this one. I feel Ingested have gone further into deathcore territory. Some would even say full-on deathcore. But in my opinion, Ingested might be the best positioned band in death metal to make that sort of a transition. Because for many years now, they've already been hard to classify. They started out as a brutal death metal band, and then they started to incorporate elements of slam, and by the third record, they were also doing tech death things as well, and thankfully they'd also started writing deeper, more meaningful lyrics. Sorry, not sorry, but I'm not into the lyrics from those early 2000s brutal and slam death metal bands. They can absolutely ruin a song for me, and I promise I'll just keep this a quick aside. I promise I won't get too preachy, but to people that defend those lyrics, let me just say this simple thing. We all love horror movies. We all love death metal. And yes, a lot of death metal, most death metal, is about horrible things. It's a real easy difference for me though. When we watch a movie like Silence of the Lambs, we might root for Hannibal Lecter. And clearly he's an evil person and a murderer. You know, there's probably some interesting philosophy and psychology we could talk about on another episode, why we might cheer for Jason Voorhees when we're watching Friday the 13th. But one thing's for sure, if you were to watch What's Love Got to Do With It about Tina Turner and Ike Turner, we don't fucking cheer for Ike Turner. Right, so back on topic now. By the turn of the decade, Ingested had already evolved a great deal. They'd become sort of a tech death meets deathcore band, but they'd also managed to maintain the sound of their roots, to keep that Ingested sound. And I really got to tip my hat off to them, because that is the impossible needle to thread. So many bands fall when they try to evolve their sound, and to be able to do that and keep your roots, that's very impressive. And again, I need to point out the serious improvement in the lyrics. And no, not just because I don't like the content of the early stuff. What I really mean is the improved artistry overall. I mean, these new lyrics it's not just writing things to be shocking just to be shocking. There's actual meaning here. Fuck your gods, fuck your kings, fuck your bastard martyrs. We're the ones that suffer first in the dirt. We're the ones in the trenches. See, now they're getting into issues of class and existentialism. And they weren't growing yet, because in 2022, they released what is my favorite album from them, Ashes Lie Still, where they put on a masterclass. I mean, this is how you incorporate more melodic elements into your music without losing any of the heaviness. And whereas on previous albums, I kind of thought, oh, that sounds a little deathcore. There was no mistaking on this one. I was like, oh, that sounds like deathcore. Ashes Lie Still is where it became pretty obvious to me that they were being influenced by other death metal bands from different genres all throughout the scene. And I want to be real clear here, because, you know, there's this thing nowadays where if I say deathcore, most people are going to think Lorna Shore, Slaughter to Prevail. But I mean more like that early deathcore, like Job for a Cowboy, Fit for an Autopsy. And I also think those are good bands to compare to this one, because those two bands have also evolved a lot over the years. You saw how much praise I just gave to Job for a Cowboy on their new record Moon Healer, which is not deathcore at all. It's full on tech death now. And then a couple of years ago on that latest Fit for an Autopsy record, Oh What the Future Holds, I mean, what a dramatic evolution that was. And I think Ingested is doing the same here. And also one more thing, when I say deathcore, a lot of people will think breakdowns. And yes, I mean, that's not without merit. Today's deathcore does predominantly feature breakdowns, but the mere existence of breakdowns does not a core genre make, and in fact, breakdowns have existed far longer than even metal itself. The break was a feature of jazz bands back in the day. And these sections are widely used by all manner of different musical genres where the instruments are a key feature of the genre, like metal. You know, you're not going to hear any breakdowns in singer-songwriter music, and also Ingested has been using breakdowns far longer than they've been incorporating deathcore elements. So when I say Ingested is starting to incorporate deathcore into their sound, I don't mean they're writing breakdowns. They've been doing that for a long time. I mean the guitar riff style and the vocal style. And with all the animal noises going on in deathcore these days, I feel that Ingested is particularly well suited to incorporate that style given their roots in brutal death metal. I mean, pig squeals, anyone? Just listen to this part from Shadows in Time from their last record, Ashes Lie Still. All right, now that the history lesson's over, let's talk about the new record, The Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams. I'm hearing even more genre blending here, and the songs are even tighter. This is a band that's been doing it for a long time, prolifically. They know what they're doing. And I love the guest spots. Now that they're an established veteran band, they're able to get guest spots from Josh Middleton of Silosis, Mark Hunter of Chimera, and that just adds so much flavor to the whole record. It really breaks it up and gives it this, diversity. So after this record, what genre would we call Ingested? Are they brutal death metal? Are they slam metal? Are they tech death? Are they deathcore? Are they old school death metal? Well, let's not speculate. I'll let the man himself, Jason Evans from Ingested, tell you. Here's a clip from his appearance on Lamb Goat's Van Flip podcast.
I don't know. Would you call it deathcore, brutal death metal, heavy?
Death metal, man.
Heavy band all around. It's very hard to classify, honestly. I think about because you guys produce so much material. It seems like you guys are just constantly churning out albums in a shorter period of time than normal bands would. What would you consider it? I mean, I know that you want to consider it death metal, and that's totally cool because it's a cooler vibe to some people than deathcore because it gets a bad rap. But deathcore's on a big swing up, these days, so it's not as bad as like 2015.
Well, the way I see it is like depending on what song or what album you're listening to by Ingested, that completely changes what genre of death metal you would say it is. Because some of our songs are more brutal death metal, some of our songs are more deathcore, some of them are more slammy, some of them are a little bit more old school, some of them have some techie, speedy riffs in them. Like some of them are a bit more melodic, some of them are more atmospheric. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like because we listen to so many different types of heavy music, that influences and shapes how we would write a song or construct a song. Because just depends on whatever we're listening to or whatever we're into at the time. So I think all of our songs have different elements of different stuff. Some songs might have elements of all of that stuff in. Some of them might have one or two. But I feel like you can always tell that it's Ingested, even if we're like straddling like the fences or blurring the lines in between genres of like extreme death metal or whatever you'd want to call it. I think it all still sounds like you hear it and you go, oh, that's Ingested, like straight away. So like if I was gonna like classify all of it, like what is Ingested, if I had to put a label on it, I'd probably say it's like modern death metal.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Or
you know what I mean? Because it's got elements of all of these. Because death metal's such a big umbrella, isn't it?
Right.
Modern death metal. Yeah, I'd say I agree with that. Here's a band that clearly loves death metal, all manner of different kinds of death metal, and they're getting influences from all the different bands that they hear. And I'm very glad that they're able to do that. They're able to pull it off because they've already got a history of doing that. They've been evolving their whole careers, so it's kind of to be expected of this band. Whereas another band that's been doing the same thing for 10 or 20 years would have a much more difficult time incorporating new elements into their music. Are you a longtime Ingested fan? Does it bother you that they've changed over the years? Let me know. But I also think that they're able to do these changes because they keep their changes confined underneath the umbrella of death metal. You know, it's not as drastic as Metallica's doing blues rock or Opeth saying we're not going to scream anymore. So I've talked about this change in sound. Let me give you an example with this week's Riff of the Week. This week I'm going with Pantheon off of their upcoming album, The Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams, which will drop this Friday, April the 5th. And you'll also want to be around here this weekend because I've got a fun announcement coming up on my weekend show exclusively on YouTube. If you're listening audio only, you can get a link in the description because you're going to want to be subscribed for that. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.